Welcome to YTunes Shuffle. This is David Earl Waterman. I'm with David Hawthorne. Goes by Dave or David. Hi, Dave Hawthorne.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you on the show right now. YTunes Shuffle, this is how the show works. I ask my guests to bring in their iPod or their cell phone or whatever they might have that has their collection of music on it. I then ask them to go ahead and set it up. We hit shuffle, and the very first song that comes up randomly is going to launch our conversation. I'll probably do my best to conduct an interview, but ultimately this podcast has everything to do with why folks have particular bits of music saved on their iPod. What is it that inspires a person to download a piece of music? And is there a backstory? Is there anything that might serve as kind of a diary, a music diary? It's like, how did this type of music become something that you were interested in, and what might have been going on in your life? And we let the shuffle, the random sort of mystic aspect of the random shuffle, determine where this is going to go. Just some background, David and I are in a theater group together. It's called The Yard, the Young Adult Repertory Dramatics. That's how I was reacquainted with David, and we're working together as actors, and this will be an ideal time for us to get to know each other. So this particular podcast is going to be a little bit of bonding as well. So I'm now going to do what I typically do and do our first audio test during the podcast. If everything works out just fine, Dave, you go ahead and hit play, and we'll see if we have any action. Yeah, turn it up all the way. I'm all the way up with mine. I've never heard that space sound before coming from my speaker, which is full blast.
I don't know what's wrong with it.
Well, I thought I actually heard some music. Now, what exactly is the device that we're using here?
It's an iPod Shuffle.
I hear music.
Must be needs more volume then. Maybe it's the other side.
Here we go. Wow. Now, hold on. Okay. There's our music. Now, I recognize this song. Can you please fill in the gaps? Who is the artist and what is the relevance?
Amazing if I knew.
Wait a minute.
I think it's like Bo Skaggs.
This is Bo Skaggs.
Yeah. It's a concert in New York that he did with Donald Fagen. It's a live concert, and it's like street sounds or something like that. A friend of mine had all these live concerts.
Okay.
That are not even produced, and he has a collection of them, and he gives me them on disc, and then I loaded a couple of them into my iPod.
So this was actually recorded live from New York City. Do you know the venue where it was recorded?
I think it was the Beacon Theater.
The Beacon Theater, Boss Skaggs.
And like a lot of different artists and stuff with Donald Fagen.
Yeah.
And then they mentioned some of the other artists, people that I really didn't know their names, but every performance is amazing.
Well, I definitely remember in probably the early 80s hearing this song was not very common on the rotation with the top 40 station, but certainly the college stations were playing this.
Yeah.
JoJo, right? Like, again, the lyrics, I mean, we have... So you downloaded this simply based on the fact, like, oh, a buddy of mine's got some cool recordings.
But he had them, and he gave them to me on disc, and then I loaded them into my iPod.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything with this particular song that kind of strikes a chord, and where it was you were in your life when this song was popular? Where were you living when this song came out? Because I think it was like 1979, between 1979 and 82.
Yeah, I was still in New York doing comedy and living
That's-
on Long Island and working in the clubs in all over the tri-state area.
When did
going
you
out of town?
When did you start doing? Oh, we had some kind of a blurb. Oh, okay. That might be my system.
Oh, okay.
So when did you start doing comedy? What year?
Well, I started right out of college.
Where'd you go to college?
Nassau Community College.
Nassau Community College.
On Long Island.
On Long Island.
Yeah, and that's where I met Billy Crystal
You met Billy Crystal.
in college.
You went to college
theater.
with Billy Crystal.
Right.
Okay.
And he and I formed the first professional theater company in the New York State University system.
So the SUNY system. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
okay.
that's what Nassau Community College is part of that system. And we ran it for 3 years, sold out every performance, and it paid for itself, and we all became equity actors. And each year, Billy and I would write a sketch show in the 5 plays that we would do, or 3 plays some years. And out of those was sketches. Then he and I were working together as comics, as friends, just working in his house, like writing material.
2 kids from Long Island at
Yeah.
Nassau
Yeah, and just
City
we just-
College.
Long Island College, it's a community college, but it had a lot of money because Nassau County is one of the richest counties in the United States.
Yeah, wow.
So they were already connected with Broadway. They had done shows that they created with professional actors at that school and took to Broadway that were hits. Like one of them was called The Whitman Portrait with James Whitmore.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that came from that. And every year they did a poets festival where they hired professional actors and professional writers to write a play about a poet and then cast it with some of the students and professional actors. I actually did a play written by Leonard Melfi with Jason Miller, was in it. The guy who wrote Championship Season.
Yeah.
That actor. And we took it to, we toured a couple of colleges, and we took it to off Broadway. We were connected with Cafe La Mama at the time. Which
Cafe La Mama.
was the center of off Broadway. It's where it all was created. It's a 5-story building. Everybody worked there, from Bette Midler to Robert De Niro. They all started there. Willem Dafoe.
And you were part of that whole mix of artists.
We could go there anytime we wanted to, hang out with Tom O'Hagan, the guy who directed Hair.
What a lucky break.
This college was amazing, and we had the opportunity to create our own theater. So anyway, out of that, Billy and I were going to be a comedy team after this. But I told him, I go, it's the Ace Trucking Company, the improv groups. We should try to do some kind of an improv group. So we took another actor, and we performed a 3-man group called We the People.
You, Billy, and
this other guy, Al Finelli.
Al Finelli. What happened to Al Finelli?
He's still alive.
Okay, that's good.
He didn't want to be a comic.
I just want to interrupt. We're in our second song, by the
Okay.
way. Do you recognize the
Let me
song?
if I can hear it.
It's live. It sounds like it's a live recording for sure. No idea.
It's probably from that concert.
That's fine. I mean,
There's so much stuff on it.
because you're definitely on shuffle. Because I can tell your setting is definitely shuffle, but just not recognizable. Just happens to be a
Even
song
that
ended
one
up
I
on
don't
your
know
list.
at all.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, I mean, this is YTunes Shuffle. The music may or may not play into it, but we're listening to some cool live music.
Yeah.
So you decided the Ace Trucking Company. Can you explain to the listeners what that was all about?
Yeah, that was a 5-man group that was doing sketches, and they were on the Tonight Show. They were the regular improv group on
When the Tonight Show was in New York City?
I guess it was still there at the time, yeah, and then it was just about to move to California, but they carried over to California.
And you got connected with them through all of this work that you...
Well, not with the Ace Trucking Company, but we did work in the same places that they did.
Oh, okay.
But we were trying, what I was saying was we're trying to do something more similar to that rather than just a 2-man comedy.
Had Saturday Night Live started at this
No,
point? This predated...
19 We started working in Greenwich Village, Billy and I, with our group, 1968-69.
What was it like in Greenwich Village in 1960 for a college
It's
kid?
fantastic.
Really? How so?
What a world. Everybody was artists. There were hootenannies at the bitter end. You could go there. There'd be 5, 6. It was all the folk era. So it would be like 5 or 6 different folk musicians, different comics. It was just a very
This
live
is where Bob
atmosphere.
Dylan where he broke out, 68, 69.
Yeah, I guess that just right after that we were there. But when we first started, we worked at a place called the Champagne Gallery, okay? And we were set up with a guy who was a professional. Billy had connections.
How did Billy have connections?
His whole family was in show business. They owned the Commodore Record Shop across from the Empire State Building in New York City, and all the jazz musicians at the time hung out there. and they would even do radio concerts.
Like jazz musicians,
Like there was a picture of Billy and his uncle. Okay, Billy's father and his uncle in the Commodore record shop, and all the guys standing around them, maybe 20 of them, is from Louis Armstrong to Dizzy Gillespie. Every major jazz
standing in a
musician
photograph with Billy Crystal's uncle.
Uncles and his father. All the people that would hang out in the Commodore record shop.
And
Billy's uncle
Go ahead.
then worked for Decca Records. He became a vice president, and he had major connections, this guy. And his cousin was an agent at William Morris who became like one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, Lee Gabler.
Lee Gabler.
Was number 3 on the list in Premium Magazine.
Huh.
Anyway, these are the connections he had. So they hooked us up with a manager, this guy, Chubby Goldfarb, who was
Chubby
Goldfarb. Classic character.
How come
Looked
we don't all know about Chubby Goldfarb? Is he still around?
No, but he was like the Esquire man, had a big white mustache, very classy guy.
Okay.
He was originally Woody Herman's road manager. Then he became Joey Bishop's manager.
Woody Herman, Joey Bishop. Some of the listeners might know. Real quick bios on Woody Herman, Joey Bishop.
Woody Herman was a big swing, band leader, one of the biggest
swing band from the 30s, 40s.
Yeah, one of the most influential, and
Frank Sinatra era.
Everything. Yeah. And Joey Bishop was like he had like the Tonight Show on ABC against Johnny Carson.
And Joey Bishop was part of Frank Sinatra's Rat Pack.
Right.
And Chubby managed these guys.
He managed Joey.
And then you got managed by Chubby.
Yeah. He hooked us up with this guy, Bernie Travis, who was supposed to be the new Lenny Bruce. And he was going to help us with our act, and he did. We would go and meet him at the Champagne Gallery. So the first time we do our act at the Champagne Gallery, Bernie comes over to us and talks about our acts. Then Richard Lewis and Ed Bluestone, who were working there, they were just starting in the business, they come to us and go, "You talked to Bernie, what did he tell you?" And we're like, he's our guy. He's going to teach us about the business. We can't even get him to tell us anything.
So you had this like remarkable lightning
connection.
Strikes experience.
Yes, and immediately we started working in the business. From doing like hootenannies at the bitter end, we auditioned for the college circuit, which was the newest thing, this coffee house circuit. We got booked immediately. Got booked in 200 colleges.
How old are you at the time? 21, 22 years old?
20 maybe, yeah.
20 years old,
Yeah.
Still in college.
Just came out of college when we started this. Yeah.
And what?
And then after college, we also had our own summer stock company at the same time. So every summer, we'd do these plays, write some sketches, then in the fall, we'd go on the road and do the colleges.
Were you making money?
Making money, making a total living in the business.
So you never had to go work at McDonald's or
working
like
right
beg,
from the
borrow, steal
beginning.
from your parents? What a lucky.
Every 3 days, we would get $150 on the road.
I say lucky, and that might be just my perception
Hard
because
work.
I had no. What is it?
Hard work.
Hard work. Well,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit? Like if you ran us through.
Yeah.
You're graduating from college. You guys are taking this seriously.
Yeah.
What would be a typical work week for you guys once the ball started rolling? If that's at all. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to.
In the summer,
What's hard work? What was hard work?
we had to learn all our lines for the first play before we even started rehearsal.
And how long? That would be a full play, like a one-act play?
Oh no, we do full plays. The first play, we did the first season. We did Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead in summer stock. No one would ever do that. We did The Odd Couple. We did The Apple Tree. What other? A couple other plays, but full-length plays.
Who
And
did
we sold out.
all your sets and everything? Did you?
It was the college, and we had a fund for it. We had money for it. We had people, the construction people that did the plays for the normal year, built our sets. And we had a friend of ours who was a professional actor from Broadway, who I started in the theater department because he was just the construction guy at first. And I did a play, and I go, "But you were a professional actor. What do you think about what we're doing?" He goes, "You have no idea what you're doing." And I go, "Well, teach us how to act." So he started to do one-act plays, and I got him to be the director of actor training for the whole school, for the whole theater department, and became the director for our summer stock company.
So, to just rewind a little bit, you're a high school kid. Was this something you were imagining was going to happen to you in college?
I was already doing leading roles in high school.
What?
Yeah, I was in high school.
Are you also from like a connected family?
Yeah, my family. My grandfather was one of the biggest stars in vaudeville.
See, I was thinking like that's how you learned your work ethic.
My father was a
You're
comedian.
the second. You're a generation after vaudeville.
Yeah, well, my father is, and he didn't want to go into business, but
This
he
is
was
our
a very...
third. By the way, I got to interrupt. Our
Yeah.
third song is now playing. We're. I think it's still from the live.
Probably.
The live concert. I'm going to call.
skip ahead a little
I
bit.
call audibles sometimes, and,
Okay.
and I'm going to I'm going to tap this button 5 times and just see what comes up.
Okay.
Just because it is YTunes Shuffle.
Yeah.
Do you know? Do you recognize who this is?
Oh, this is Eric Clapton
Oh, okay.
in Madison Square Garden with Cream, with like a reunion.
Oh, let's listen for a second.
Yeah. I didn't know this was on here. Yeah, this is again another one of those live concerts.
I'm getting this now. Your shuffle, David, is so far has been just random live performance. We started Boz Scaggs, then went to something we couldn't recognize the next guy. But this is fucking Eric Clapton and Cream.
In Madison Square Garden, live at Cream. Nothing that was ever produced. Again, a live concert that this was recorded but never put out there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, here's a kid from vaudeville. Your grandfather was in vaudeville.
My grandfather was a huge star.
Your father.
My father, no, my grandfather.
Your
was
grandfather,
a star.
huge star. of
Huge star. I worked with Henny Youngman one time, right?
Wait,
And
your dad, your grandpa, or you?
I did.
You worked with Henny
Henny
Youngman.
Youngman. So my father says he'll know your grandfather. He'll know who he is because this is old time vaudeville. Like my grandfather was a star in the 20s.
Yeah.
Big, like a star at the Palace Theater, not just one of the acts. He would do the whole show, write the whole show with his partner and do the show with songs and everything at the Palace Theater. It's in the Library of Congress, that particular show.
Most of us that have like secretaries as moms. My dad was a high school health educator and phys ed teacher, and we don't have the experience of like, wait a minute, your grandfather was a vaudeville guy, show business.
Yes, totally show business.
So in your home, was it inundated with memorabilia? Was
No,
it
my father threw it all away when he got out of the war. His father died. He had steamer trunks full of stuff with with scripts and stuff. But he didn't want any part of show business, my father.
But
So he threw it all away.
you got the bug.
Well, he didn't want to tell me that. He didn't want me to even know anything about this. I did a play in high school, and I played the lead in it. And the teacher at the school had invited all his friends that were real actors from Broadway, and they watched the play. And they told him at the end, there's one person in this play that could be on Broadway right now. And he's telling this story to the group of us. And I go, who is it? He goes, you.
Oh,
I go, oh, that's
wow,
crazy. How could it be me? So I
wow.
told my mother and my father, I go, the teacher said that I'm so good I should be on Broadway right now. And my mother goes to my father, you better tell him. So he goes, your grandfather was a star in show business. We didn't want to tell you that.
Well, some people, as an actor too, who's kind of first generation, kind of went into it and was lucky enough to meet people like yourself and others to kind of catch up with. There's something to it lineage-wise. I mean, like if it's in your blood, if your father's a great carpenter, you're likely to be one. So you got the bug.
You couldn't get it out of you. I just,
Born with it.
Yeah, and my father would even say to me, he goes, you do things that my father did. He goes, you didn't know. I never met him. He died like the year before I was born, my grandfather.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Tell us his full name again, please.
That was Albert Hawthorne. But that wasn't his real name. He changed his real name was Newman because he was German, but it was World War I, so it wasn't going to be German anymore.
I know nothing. I see nothing.
So he became Hawthorne, but he never changed his name because he was known as Hawthorne. So he changed my father's name legally. So I'm legally Hawthorne, and so is he. But he wasn't.
And his stage name was Hawthorne.
Yeah. But anyway, when I talked to Henny Youngman.
Now, here's a YTunes Shuffle miracle. This is why I love, now you've got, like, we're talking Broadway, we're talking vaudeville, and here on David Hawthorne's Mix, Random Shuffle, it's the chairman of the board. Okay, so you're Frank, you're a big Frank fan?
Big. I saw him live in Radio City.
You got to see Frank Sinatra live.
Yeah, when I was like 72, but he was fantastic.
70, just great years for him.
Opening for him, Shirley MacLaine. What a show.
You got to witness the real deal that a lot of the generation that followed me, I mean, I'm 50.
Yeah.
And you remember a few years ago the whole sort of swingers that sort of
Yeah.
young culture trying to grasp on.
Grasp on
You
it.
saw it. You
Yeah.
saw the
Oh, yeah.
72 was happening.
Yeah, he was definitely
Shirley
fantastic.
MacLaine opened it up.
Yeah, great show. Anyway, Henny Youngman, I said to him, "Did you ever hear?" I didn't tell him it was my grandfather because I wanted to get his honest opinion. So I go, "Did you ever hear of an act in vaudeville called Hawthorne and Cook, which was one of his acts? He had many acts. my
Okay.
grandfather. And he was always Hawthorne. He wrote it all. He was the star. He goes, Hawthorne and Cook. Hawthorne and Cook was one of the greatest acts in show business. He goes, you don't know, but they invented nut comedy. He goes, you don't know what that is. I go, I got a pretty good idea.
That's a pretty amazing bloodline.
But I know
man.
that he was like one of the biggest. He helped Burns and Allen get their act together because there was this act, Block and Sully, that he worked with. And he goes, you guys should do what they did. And he taught them how to go and use those ideas. And one time my father was walking around, after he was retired, they're walking along Broadway, they passed the Palace Theater, which is where all the acts hung out. Al Jolson comes running down the street after my grandfather, goes, Hawthy, you walked right past me.
Al Jolson.
Al Jolson. This is not a made-up story. He goes, Hawthy, you walked right past me. He goes, oh, I'm sorry, Al, I didn't see you. And he walks on with my father. He goes, I saw him. I just don't want to talk to him. He was a big blowhard.
Well, so it makes sense genealogically, if that's even a word, that you would experience and bond with Billy Crystal and others that have kind of a family connection, and you're experiencing the success. And I want to get back to that a little bit.
Sure.
But is anything happening to preserve these experiences? I mean, your grandfather invented nut comedy. Just
give you an
define
idea
nut
what that is.
Okay, yeah.
Nut comedy was stolen from him by Olson and Johnson, and they wrote a show called Hell's a Poppin', based on my grandfather's acts. Things that he did crazy things like a guy comes out on a stage, fires a shotgun in the air, boom, fish fall down all over the stage. That kind of crazy thing.
Of course,
In Hell's a Poppin', there's a guy, Rust as a bellboy, is going around going, and I think it was Hugh Herbert played the part. Hugh Herbert. He goes, here's a little tip for you, He's going around giving people tips. He's the bellboy. There's a guy walking around, Mrs. Jones, he's got a little plant going up and down the aisles. This is in a Broadway house. And they keep, Mrs. Jones comes back, the plant's a little longer. Mrs. Jones, comes back, the plant's getting really big. Mrs. Jones, at the end of the show, when you walk out the door, he's in the top of a palm tree going, Mrs. Jones.
Nut comedy.
So my father...
And we called it alternative in 1990. And they were doing it back in, 1930?
My grandfather told my father in 1930s, he goes, it's all been done already. It's in the 30s.
That's what people don't realize, is that there isn't anything new. It's a new take on inspiration.
Yeah.
Real quick,
Yeah.
this is song number 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Kind of a showy tune here. Do you know it?
Take a second. Oh, there you go. This is live Steely Dan in
nice.
Heine, Michigan. Nothing never was produced, just another live show.
I like the live. That's a nice mix.
It's
Steely
cool because
Dan.
you have like Donald Fagen is so hip, so he has his ad libs and his jokes and stuff that you wouldn't hear on any of the albums. So it's cool stuff, you know.
Okay, so what we're learning here, folks, not only is that it's great to have live music on your iTunes or whatever tune shuffle, but there's a method to the madness that we enjoy today in comedy. And sitting with me now is a person who is directly related to the inventor. This is David Hawthorne with me. If you've just tuned in, and his grandfather, the famous
Hawthorne and Cook, Hawthorne and Burt. Hawthorne and Burt. Like Burt, if you ever heard of a movie called Mother Wore Tights.
Mother Wore Tights?
Yeah, it's Ethel Merman and Dan Daly. It was a hit like in probably the 40s, okay? It's a musical. It's about about Burt, which was my grandfather's partner. But the book was written by his daughter, Bert's daughter. So he left my grandfather out of the movie.
Yeah, when you're watching comedy today and you're saying, wow, how inventive, how creative. It is, but it has a genesis. It has a history, and we're learning about it today on YTunes Shuffle, and I'm so tickled to death. Now, David Hawthorne, who I'm having the pleasure of saying, I got to work with David Hawthorne, and knowing somewhat about an individual when you first walk into a rehearsal space, you know, it's amazing the things you don't know, and I'm so grateful to have this moment. So now jumping back to your time.
Yeah.
You're making it. You're out of college. You're in your 20s. You're living in Greenwich Village. And I had asked you a little bit earlier, and if we could just kind of pick it up. You were talking a little bit about, it was hard work.
Oh, yeah.
You had to learn your lines. You had to gather up people to help you build this stuff.
We had to write all our material.
Yeah.
Here we are going in, we're going to be a sketch group. We have a couple of sketches, but we don't have an act.
What was the name of the group? Do you have a name?
Because it was the 60s, right?
Yeah, this is the 60s.
Right, so it's revolution.
Before SNL, before Second City. This is
Years before.
This is happening
68, 69,
before most
70.
of the people listening were born, except for my biggest fan, my mother. Anyway.
Yeah. So the name of our group was We the People.
We the People.
Yeah, because everything we did was something about pollution, about the war, about Nixon. Only, and we're playing colleges, so we're playing right into our own age group where everybody's consciousness was.
So Liz Winstead and Jon Stewart and all those on Politically Incorrect. I mean, it's when people talk about how the internet has really brought forward political consciousness and in a humorous way. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, you were contributing in that way.
Oh yeah, we were influenced by Firesign Theater at the time, and then we're taking it into a more political vein. Yeah.
A lot of folks today, young people, and I have the privilege of working with a lot of young people, are going to think about, wow, man, here's a guy who got to be living in this iconic, this incredible chapter of time in American history.
It was an amazing time.
It was an amazing time. It was
wonderful and it was horrible.
As is life in general.
Yeah.
And the one area that I'm interested in just hearing because you were there, okay? A lot of young people have the drug thing tied into their sort of imagination or frame of reference for guys that were doing art, Hendrix, the Beatles, you guys, Greenwich Village,
sure,
Woodstock, which would come shortly after,
around
that time, right in that time,
Still had our group.
In your best, most honest reflection, how significant was it, or was it very different?
It was definitely significant.
It was
because
definitely.
It was the Beatles, and it was like '67, and we were trying to get into that hip mindset, and that was the way you did it. And there was no pot when I was in high school.
Wait a minute. When you were in high school, there was no pot.
No pot. No one even knew what it was.
And for some of you, that pot means Kush.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I graduated in 1967. Mm-hmm. It probably was in Greenwich Village, because we used to go there when I was 15 and walk around and see the hippies with the long hair, even in '64. But there was only 2 or 3 of them.
Right.
There wasn't a lot, and we didn't know anything about what they were doing or smoking or anything.
So
you knew nothing.
You had no sort of today's young artist might be prepared with an expectation to eat some ecstasy or shrooms or be vaping some Kush now, but you came into a blind, and it was introduced sort of. Yeah. Like you were the pioneers of that particular lifestyle.
Well, I was telling you, I worked with Jason Miller. The first time I smoked a joint was on the road with that show that I was in with him, and it was at a college, and somebody had a joint, Billy's brother, and he said, we're going to try this. With 3 of us, we smoked it, and we were like, hey, that's pretty good. That night, Jason Miller had hash brownies with me and a bunch of other cast members. We did them. I started doing this bit, because one of the older actors was a very funny improviser, and he goes, Jason Miller goes, do the Indian, the old Indian. So he's going, and I go, I can do that. He goes, all right, you do the old Indian, talking to the young Indian. So he starts talking to me, and I talk back to him. Jason Miller is on the floor.
And this is off stage.
It's just off stage in a motel room.
And you're on the road.
And he's like, and I'm like,
substances, alcohol, and all the rest of it are here to stay. They've been here before any of us got here.
Sure.
How?
Plus, that play was about drugs. It was called Raven Rock, and it was about a guy who drops acid and hallucinates that he's Edgar Allan Poe. Remember I told you it's a poet's thing?
Why don't we do that in this theater group we're in now? We should resurrect some of that stuff.
And it was directed by Julie Bavasso off Broadway.
How do artists that have that sort of adventurous, experimental spirit? 1 second. Here's a
More
nice
Steely Dan.
Oh, more Steely Dan.
Same live,
Okay.
live show.
Cool. What advice would you give young artists? Because obviously you're a pretty healthy guy, and don't seem like you have any residual problems whatsoever related to substances. How do you avoid those problems? As an artist, as a person who's interested in it, is it luck or what?
No, you got to be smart enough to know when it's getting control of you. I used to drink a lot as a stand-up comedian.
You did?
And at a certain point, you just say, no more. And I just stopped drinking.
It was pure willpower for you.
Willpower. Just go in there and not drink. And then not smoke or not do anything for maybe a year or two. But I also took EST in like 1977.
EST is like a
Earhart Seminar Training.
Okay.
And that kind of enlightened me to my whole life. And I actually, at that point, was out of show business for a year. And I realized I couldn't be happy unless I was in show business. So I went back and became a stand-up comic after I'd broken up my group.
Is EST like a spiritual type path?
Yeah, it is. It's about knowing who you are, your larger self, and believing in that you can do anything.
How important is that for young artists and creative
It's the most
people?
important thing because it teaches you the humanity of what art it really is about. So why would you indulge in art if you're not going to help your fellow man?
Does it have to be EST or could it be
No, it could be the Bible, it could be Christ, it could be anything. Whatever works for you.
But do something to try to connect.
Connect to loving your fellow man. Because that's what the whole experience is. I was just watching a thing about Orson Welles last night. He goes, sometimes I don't think art for art's sake is enough. It has to be something that we're doing. So you have to turn around and do something for humanity. I hope I've done something. And that's Orson Welles.
Well, I think that's important too because, like my thing started meeting people at the time, Louis C.K., Mark Maron,
Sure.
David Cross, Sarah Silverman, John Ennis,
Right.
who were folks that were being trained in college and had a very clear focus on show business. I was studying social work. I was going to be a social worker,
Wow.
and just happened to have enough of a sense of humor that I got privileged to sort of grab a hold of their work ethic. Like
Right.
yourself, they were hardworking individuals, and I got very fortunate. But I did, I just want to say, I partied my ass off to the point where
sure.
the partying and the substances definitely got in the way. And I too, did some exploration, completely sober, completely no drugs, to get that perspective. And today, I got to say, I mean, it's definitely helped the situation.
Yeah.
Now we're coming into I guess the 70s. That must have been like that was now you went from like the folk era.
Yeah.
Now you're in the 70s. Are we talking about Studio 54?
Yeah, and I never went there. Like I used to work at Catch a Rising Star when because that's where we actually opened Catch a Rising Star.
You
My
were part
act.
of the
I was there opening night.
You were
We
at
were
opening night,
asked
New York
from-
City,
Right.
Catch a Rising Star.
Catch a Rising Star. We were one of the bigger acts at the Improv, but at this point now we're with Rollins and Joff.
Now you're saying we were one of the biggest acts. You weren't a solo act. You're still with.
I'm still with Billy Crystal.
Okay.
Yeah. So now we left Chubby Goldfarb.
Chubby's
Chubby
out
didn't
of
want
picture.
us to leave.
Okay. All right.
He was right. He goes, if you leave me, you'll break up, which we did. But anyway, we wanted to break up anyway, but there were other reasons. But we're with Rollins and Joff, and they handled Robert Klein. And we have Buddy Morrow individually handling us. He loves us. He saw us. We were auditioning for somebody else, for another manager, and he walked by the door. Buddy Morrow walked by the door. We were at Buddha Records because we had a deal there for records so we could use their conference room for auditions to get a new manager. We're auditioning for a guy named Ed Goodgold. Buddy Morrow walks by the door. He's watching us. Ed Goodgold goes, that's the guy who should see you. Buddy Morrow. He goes, I'm going to go get him. Gets him, brings him in, sits him down. We do the audition. While we're doing it, this is not a pump to myself, but this is actually what happened. We're doing the bits. Buddy Morrow stands up, points at me, and goes, you're great. Not Billy. That's not a good thing for me and Billy.
No, it's weird,
that's what
isn't it?
happened.
It's weird because
Yeah.
it's
Anyway.
you start together as buddies, and then the shit gets real, and it's like, oh, I'm going, but you're not. Okay, anyway.
But it wasn't that, but it's just all those ego things.
Ego
they're
things,
there.
yeah.
So anyway, he signs us. So now anything that Robert Klein turns down, we get.
Jesus, Christmas.
So Robert Klein turns down the Lighthouse of the Blind. It's a charity.
Okay.
Event at the Waldorf Astoria in the main ballroom with Will Jordan, Tony Bennett, and the Ray Block Orchestra.
Oh my God.
So we're going to do the comedy spot that he was going to do. We go backstage to go on. Tony Bennett's standing there. He goes, fellas, I'm just going to go out. I'm going to sing San Francisco, and you're on. It's the biggest song in the United States at the time.
And it was a casual reference, like, you know.
I'm just going to do that, and you guys are on. So we're going to follow Tony Bennett singing the biggest hit song.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. I didn't think
San
about
Francisco,
that.
he tells us.
How do you follow that?
We killed.
With what?
With our act, we had a bit called The Wide World of Sports,
okay,
which Billy did,
of
Howard Cosell, and
yeah.
I played all the other characters. There's a golf thing, and the fight thing was a punch in the balls at the end, which was a killer.
Wow, I have to. I interrupted David because we got number 7 song.
Oh yeah, this is still Steely.
Okay, we're gonna Steely Dan it in this shuffle. That's what it's gonna be. So you follow Tony Bennett at the Waldorf Astoria,
and Will Jordan was on the show too, and he went on. He comes over to me and he goes, "You're great again." To me, pulls me over, introduces me to his old mother, who's like this old Italian lady, and I'm sitting there with him, hanging out. And Billy was the one who I didn't even know who Will Jordan was. He goes, "Well, Jordan is my favorite." Tell the listeners
who he was for those.
He was the original guy who did Ed Sullivan impression. Everyone who ever does an Ed Sullivan impression is doing Will Jordan.
Was a
really big shoe and all that.
He's
and
the first guy.
He did Groucho Marx. He was a fantastic impressionist when that was big.
Okay.
He was the guy.
Okay.
He's in Danny Rose.
Oh, he's
Will
in the
Jordan.
movie. Okay.
He's in the movie. He does a thing with his glasses. He goes, Picasso. He puts the glasses on sideways.
And you guys are hanging out. It's just a normal
just telling
thing
me
for
I'm
you.
going to make it in the business.
Oh, I love
one of
that.
those things.
Kiss it down.
Yeah,
Kiss it down.
exactly.
Kiss it down.
Exactly.
I get that.
But nobody knows that at the time.
No, of course.
Sounded fantastic.
Did you know you were having fun? Did you know you were kind of in the catbird seat? Were you aware of it?
We were so lucky. I left this out. My friend who was the actor brought in Michael Dunn, the dwarf actor who was in Ship of Fools. He was the Merciless, Dr. Merciless on the Wild Wild West. Worked all the time, Star Trek, everything. Broadway. He came in and directed us in a play in college, and I became friends with him. We would hang out. We would literally go out to dinner with this guy and hang out with him all the time. And he'd invite us to his openings on Broadway, and we'd hang out with him. This was still in college.
David Hawthorne is my guest. Direct bloodline to vaudeville. His grandfather,
Billy Crystal,
and Billy Crystal, his family. The reason David Hawthorne.
We just had a reunion recently with Billy.
You did.
He mentioned me on the Tonight Show, the last Tonight Show, because we had worked with Jay Leno years ago.
Yeah.
And Jay knew us and everyone, and they were just reminiscing about when we first worked together. And he goes, "Yeah, with the guys." He goes, "You remember the guys?" Of course. And he showed our picture. This is Dave Hawthorne, Al Finelli on the last Tonight Show. And then we had a reunion 6 months later at our college at Nassau, and I got to be with Billy, and we took all those pictures again. Yeah. It was fantastic.
And these are the YTunes Shuffle, episode number 7, The Roots of Comedy, live music playing in the background on David Hawthorne Shuffle. Man, it's just, we've only gotten up until like the mid-70s at this point.
Yeah. I didn't even start my stand-up career, which was a whole nother career. And I did television as a writer, worked with Rick Messina.
And Rick Messina, for those that may not know, he handles the best and brightest TV.
Tim Allen, Drew Carey.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you were in that camp.
Right.
Yeah.
And he produced shows on Showtime and stuff like that.
So
these strip shows. I wrote for those. I was on them. We first started with Comic Strip Live with John Mulrooney.
I
wrote for that show.
Totally remember John.
Yeah. And that was out of the Laugh Factory, which we turned into the studio for that show.
So you did your time as a stand-up comic. I imagine you traveled all over the world, did the shows, the HBO stuff, and all that
did
stuff.
all that stuff. Yeah. And then did every strip show. Did Evening at the Improv. Did just every one of those strip shows. Worked on all of them. And then we did all the other pilots. We wrote a bunch of pilots. That one got picked up by ABC, to be made as a pilot, but didn't get picked up as a show. But we got that far, which is some writing stuff that we did.
How important is music in your life and in general? Like now, when you kind of have an opportunity to kind of reflect and Is it something that you can listen to your iPod or whatever it is, we have? Is music a frame of reference for you, that there are certain genres of music that can sort of take you to a time and place in your head?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm very much into jazz, and that was a big thing I learned from Billy Crystal.
Okay.
Because they knew jazz, and they
Because
were
of the
jazz,
whole the
family
music
background.
store and the
Right.
history.
Yep. And it was so hip because his brother and him were totally into jazz. So here comes his brother down the street. We're just walking, and he goes, "Oh, you got a new album? And what'd you get?" I got Mingus Dynasty, and I'm like, "Who's Mingus?" I have no idea. Charles Mingus, one of the greatest albums of all time, and you learn. And I would learn from these guys about all the jazz and get more in. And I already like jazz, but you go see Billy when they closed the Commodore record shop. All the records went into Billy's house. So he had every. He goes to me, "You like Miles Davis?
Right.
You like the Birth of the Cool?" In the plastic envelope, pull out the sleeve. There it is. Not only that, when we first started doing comedy, he goes, "We should listen to comedy." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Who do you like?" I go, Jonathan Winters." He goes, "Which album?" I go, "I didn't even know he had albums." Here's 6 Jonathan Winters albums. We listened to all of them. That's where I'm influenced by the comedy. Listening to Mel Brooks, and we used to learn from Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner. And Billy and I would do a team, and he would interview me, and we would work in that same vein. He knew how to throw me an idea that was the joke that I was going to do, and I knew how to tell him a joke that I wanted to do.
And when you think about jazz music,
same thing.
And
Rhythms.
And as an actor, as a comedian,
All
as
rhythms.
a creative person, once you start doing it,
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it that's our partner? The music is what drives it forward.
We didn't really know that about comedy.
Yeah.
Marvin Bromman had seen our act when we first started breaking at the Improv. We were the first act of our age group to break through at the Improv. Everybody else was in their 30s. We were working with Steve Landesberg, Robert Klein.
Steve Landesberg, Barney Miller,
Yep,
Robert Klein, numerous HBO specials.
I'm trying to think of the other guy. Anyway, all these
George Carlin come through. You see all
Lily
these-
Tomlin would come through.
Oh, my
Mort Saul would be there. Jackie Mason is there.
And there's no stopping, folks. Like, once you get the bug and you start running, I mean,
Stiller and Miro were friends of ours, would come and watch us. Steve Landesberg would say to me, "I go, are you going to go on tonight, Steve?" He goes, "I don't know. I don't feel like it." He goes, "I'll go on if you guys are going to sit in the audience and watch me." I go, "Okay, me and Billy will watch you." Because he knew we'd laugh at him.
Yeah.
We loved him. Yeah.
wow.
And they were so nice. But anyway, Marvin Bromman watches our act and he goes, we didn't know he was stealing our material. He goes, "Show me everything you got." So we show him our stuff, and he goes, "You don't have the rhythm." He goes, "This is the rhythm." He goes, "Like you're doing a shoe store bit. Oh, let me see your car. Sit down. I like to check your size. Let's see how it is." He goes, No. Welcome to the shoe store. Going to check your size. Let me see what you got, and we're here. And you're like, "Oh, that's the thing." Ba-ba-bum, how you play it, and you work it, and you make sure you do that.
And it's the term is riffing and jazz music I'm a guy who got involved in improv comedy and like I say, I got involved with some really ambitious people and continue in my life. Thank goodness for modern technology and the ability to have these little toys to play with and do this podcast. Yeah. David, I'm out of time on our limit. It's 40 minutes. I hope you'll come back and we'll continue it, because what I'd like to do is try to bank as much of these as possible. For a lot of reasons.
Sure.
And it doesn't hurt to have a frame of reference preserved in one way, shape, or
One
form.
last thing?
Please.
I have a playbill of my grandfather from 1917 in the Walnut Theater in Philadelphia on the same bill as Sarah Bernhardt. And he's the star of the show, not
Will you
her.
email that to me somehow? Is there any way you can
I'll bring it
email?
in. I'll show it to you.
I'll take a picture of it and I can stick it onto this thing. Yeah. I'm likely to put this out sooner rather than later, but I can always go back and re-edit it. My guest has been David Hawthorne, actor, writer, comedian, and now I'm lucky to say part of a theater group I'm involved in. I didn't realize how fucking lucky I was. Thanks for those of you that took the time to listen to YTunes Shuffle. It's a show about the music people like to listen to. We talk about the music and anything else that comes up, and oh my God, a lot comes up as has just happened. So that's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure.